To me, over the past 2 decades, the Toyota Sequoia has earned itself quite the reputation because of its reliability, capability, and ability to haul 8 people at the same time. Toyota only recently started dropping these new 3rd gen Sequoias, and today I want to talk about if this big tree lives up to not only my expectations, but yours as well. So this particular Sequoia is a 2023 Platinum in Celestial Silver Metallic. There's a few more trim levels above that. Side note, my dream spec of a 2023 Sequoia is a Solar Octane TRD Pro. The MSRP of this one as it sits is a whopping $79,379. That's right neck on neck with the Tahoe with the 6.2, the Premier trim, and the Advanced package. This one also has a few factory options that brings the base $73,000 MSRP for a Platinum up to almost $80,000. Automatic running boards, optional tow mirrors, and most importantly and unfortunately, the auto leveling rear suspension. Of course, the Sequoia is the same in regards of being Toyota's biggest SUV, but unlike the 1st and 2nd gen, we have a completely different powertrain this year. But just like those older Sequoias, we still have only one powertrain. It's this absolute powerhouse of a motor. So no more V8, but this is a 3.5 liter twin turbocharged port and direct injected V6. It's paired to a hybrid system with an electric motor that's sandwiched between the engine itself and the 10-speed automatic transmission, which is also new. It makes 437 horsepower and a dump truck like 583 pound-feet of torque, and that torque is only available at 2,700 RPM, so this thing really goes. As for MPGs, Toyota claims 19 in the city, 22 on the highway, and a combined rating of 20. Now, on the highway, I have been seeing about 20 MPG, but in town, I've been a little bit disappointed, only getting about 15 MPG. That's like the 5.7. Of course, these are 4-wheel drive, with 4-wheel drive being an option, but Toyota doesn't offer full-time 4-wheel drive in the Sequoia at all. I've heard that it's because of durability, but I believe that Toyota can make a proper full-time 4-wheel drive system with a high and low range. This only has 2-wheel drive, 4 high and 4 low. The Sequoia is big, and it's really big. It's actually 208 inches long, 7 inches longer than Toyota's Grand Highlander, which is coming out very soon. But as you can see, this one is a Platinum, so it has these dark finish 20-inch alloy wheels, and it's a more road-oriented setup, but it fits. Of course, as you ascend up the Sequoia hierarchy, you get different wheels with different trim levels. To me, this new Sequoia really is evident that Sequoia had relations with the Grand Highlander. Because the Sequoia now uses a solid rear axle just like the 1st gen, and this is a hybrid, so that hybrid battery is underneath the 3rd row. Those two things have given us a tragedy of space. Toyota is very proud that they made the 3rd row slidable now. With the 3rd row all the way back, you have only 11 cubic feet of volume. There's a claimed 22 cubic feet of volume if you slide the 3rd row all the way forward, but then issues lie when you actually sit in the back of the 3rd row. But the 3rd row is thankfully power folding. It is a nice feature to have, especially at this price point, but it doesn't really make it any better. I can't even really sugarcoat this. This does not work for me. The load floor is already high as it is, and the 3rd row not folding flat or into the floor makes it even higher, because you have to, if you want to actually haul things, to get that 45 cubic feet of volume, you have to lift this out and then put it up a little higher. It's like a parcel shelf. So this is your load floor if you want to try to haul a couch or something. Now the 2nd row seats do fold, but they don't fold flat into the floor, and that gives you up to 86 cubic feet of volume. And even other SUVs that this competes with, like the Chevy Tahoe, one of its main rivals, can haul up to 122 cubic feet of volume. The tailgate, of course, also goes down with power, and just like Sequoias from the past, You can open the rear glass, but sadly it's not 4Runner style that slides down in the tailgate. One thing before we open this, actually let me just show you. You can pop the rear window open just like the last gen Highlander. It's nice that you can do this, but with the older Sequoias that have the windows that slide down, you can drive with this thing open. This I wouldn't recommend. But I also wish that Toyota hid the rear wiper just like all the other models that they have done in the past. But Toyota does claim 9,500 pounds of towing, so that's good. Again, this one has the pleasure of getting the option of the load leveling rear suspension, which is air suspension, but this makes it ride very bad. Thankfully, Toyota makes it easy to get into the third row, but if you have child seats, you're not in luck because you'll have to take them out, because the only way to get into the third row instead of crawling in between the two captain's chairs on this one is flipping the back down and then the bottom up. So there's no child seat that's gonna fit there, but it is easy to get into with all this room. Okay, so now put this here and then the back like this. I can also recline the thing for the person in the back if I wanna be nice, but I'm 5'9". If I sit back, my hair just barely rubs up against the headliner. It is nice there's air vents back here, thank God, on a day like this today. But in terms of legroom, I have about an inch with this seat all the way back. Of course, because this is a 3-row that's body on frame, my knees are pretty up high, but I'm not too uncomfortable. The third row seat is actually reasonably comfortable for being a third row. They're not heated, unfortunately, but Toyota does offer a few creature comforts. Both outboard third row passengers have a USB Type-C port. Also, the third row seats are able to recline with power, but I even have less headroom, so that's a little bit disappointing. The armrests back here are just hard plastic, so I really do feel like I'm in the trunk of this, but there are sunshades, which is nice. And it's interesting, the second row seat actually feels less comfortable than the third row. The back is hard. It does recline, but that doesn't really make it any better because there's just a lot of lower back lumbar. It's very stiff. The bottoms are okay. The second row seats are heated and ventilated, and there is a complete climate control zone for the rear seat passengers, and also air vents that are behind this console in the middle and also on the ceiling. So thankfully there's a lot of ventilation back here. But in terms of space, I'm 5'9". The driver's seat is in my position. I have a lot of legroom, maybe a foot. And again, you can't slide this seat forwards or backwards. I do wish that the second row did slide because I could give the third row passengers a little bit more room, which would give the trunk a little bit more room as well. Since this one has the captain's chairs, there's 2 cup holders in the middle and some storage tray thing, and everything is removable, so it makes it super easy to clean this thing out. That's one thing about Toyota that I love. There's also 2 big cup holders on the back half of the front console as well. Around the front seat, this is where things get more interesting because that means it's closer to the time to drive it. But let's get inside. I wish there were grab handles up on the top, but there are handles to get in for ingress and egress. But let's close the door. Again, a nice solid thunk. And this is the new key fob for the Sequoia. I wish they put the logo on the back. Would look cool, but this is nice though. The interior of the Sequoia is virtually identical to the Tundra, which is a good thing because I really like how this looks. You have this huge screen in the middle, huge digital display for the gauges, this nice 4-spoke leather-wrapped steering wheel with this brushed aluminum trim on it. It is heated as well. There's a lot of buttons on it. The left side controls the information display in the gauges and some of the audio controls, and the right side controls some of your Toyota safety sense settings. And the horn has a good sounding horn. Now talking about the gauges, they're fully digital in this one. There's not a lot of customization though. It does change depending on what drive mode you're in, which is a cool touch, and the animations are actually pretty quick as well. This one, being a hybrid, has a max gauge, which is kind of like a tachometer for the electric motor, and there's also a battery charge indicator. I also like that there's a digital boost gauge as well. All 4 windows are automatic, which is a nice touch, and the driver's seat, steering wheel, and mirrors are linked to memory. There's a whole lot of buttons on the left side of the steering wheel, which at first were a little bit I wouldn't say overwhelming, but it was just a lot, but I've gotten used to it. There's two buttons in particular that I wanted to talk about. First is that AC 120 volt. That's for the power outlet in the second row and in the trunk of the car to turn them on. On the right of that is an interesting button. It turns on lights that are on the mirrors themselves, and outside at night it illuminates the back of the car. I'm not exactly sure what those are for, but they do work. Fit and finish is pretty decent as well. Everything that I feel up on the top is a nice soft touch material. While we're already on the top of the dash, there's this little tray that I would never see if I didn't look up while I was cleaning this. And there's also a power outlet there as well. That's really nice. This one does have a huge pano moonroof, which is really nice. But let's talk about the pièce de résistance of this car. It is a 14-inch infotainment screen. This uses Toyota's new connected services system, which is decent. It's actually pretty responsive. I've had to boot it up, well, reboot it, I think once or twice in the week that I've had it. This system supports wireless and wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The only real thing I can say about this is that I wish it had a dedicated home screen, because there's no landing page, just like in CarPlay. That's why I use CarPlay the most myself, so I don't really mind it, but it would be nice to have a home screen. Thankfully, below that, all the controls are very legible and very easy to grab onto, even if you have gloves, like a huge volume knob. The dual zone climate control is very easy and uses very truck-like toggles. I like it. Along with the trailer brake controller that's in this, this has a trailer backup assistant, which works pretty well, kind of like a ghost backing the trailer up. This one also has a Trick 360 view camera. In park, it just shows this aerial view, but if you're in drive or reverse, like now, there's a whole lot of views which work very well when you're parking and even when you're on the road as well. Very useful. And it has a backup camera with guidance lines that steer with the wheel, and this will even help you line up with your trailer. Down below there's a Qi wireless charger which can fit most phones nowadays, I think. This one has an electronic parking brake and that big shifter. I like that Toyota kept a more traditional trucky-like shifter in this, but it would be kind of cool to have a column shifter again. I know that's not coming back. Behind the shifter is the control for the four-wheel drive system and also the different drive modes. This one also has a tow haul mode as well, which adapts the transmission. Towards the right of all that, there's two cup holders which are reasonably sized, but they don't fit big water bottles. Something that will fit the water bottle is this huge console. First of all, the armrest is decently soft touch with more of that blue stitching. There's this little console up here, which you could put your wallet in. And then there's this tray down here, which I've put my wallet in or my phone or whatever. And it also slides backwards and forwards. And the whole thing lifts up and shows more room. And again, there's more of these rubber trays which make it super easy to clean out. There's a USB Type-C port and a USB Type-A port in the console of this. Thank you, Toyota. And there's also dedicated coin holders, which is interesting for businessmen. Speaking of USB ports, I almost forgot of this one on the dash right here. There's so many USB ports in this, but both the driver and passenger side seats offer full power adjustment and full four-way lumbar. The driver and passenger side seats are also heated and cooled. Again, they're reasonably comfortable, but they can be on the hard side depending on who you are. They're also kind of flat, but I'm surprised there's also a thigh extension, which is a really nice feature to have as well. So my time with this Sequoia, I almost called it a Tundra, has been interesting because I've had a lot of thoughts about it. So we're gonna have an interesting drive today. First of all, when you're driving it around parking lots like now, it's very easy. This thing does not feel as big as it is because the steering is very easy, but Toyota did a good job designing it because it doesn't feel boaty and there's still a bit of road feel and a bit of a connection. I am going to show you how the acceleration is, so I'm going to put myself into Sport S Plus and it's quick. I mean, I would say, dare I say, fast. The thing is with this, you don't really feel the speed much, so that's really where the deception comes in. And it handles well, because like I'll not throw it, I'll toss it into this corner. There is some understeer, but hey, Like, it's great. It's great. This thing feels the best on the highway because this is a Sequoia. The power that's in this thing is to make driving as effortless as possible because, I mean, unless if you're one of those moms or dads that has to be full throttle all the time. The tow mirrors are something that you have to get used to if you're not used to them. Yeah, this thing is a really, this thing pulls like a train. I don't know how to, like, no. I just want to do one more pull, and then we'll talk about how this is when you're normally driving it, but. So under full throttle, this uses the electric motor and the gas motor in conjunction to give you that 583 pound-feet of torque. And you really do feel it. The brakes also really impress me. Very sure-footed pedal and very strong stopping pressure as well. Now that we're at a more civilized pace, I can talk about how this is when you're normally driving it. The engine is quiet. You can hear a bit of a low growl. They did a pretty decent job pumping engine audio into the speakers, which makes it have that deeper sound. And when you're cruising in EV mode, of course, there's almost no sound at all. The transition also from electric to gas is pretty smooth. You can feel a bit of a shudder, but to me, because this is a truck, this does not bother me. And that's why it doesn't bother me as well. This thing, it pulls like a freight train. It's so great. One of the things I like doing, usually when there's no one behind me, because I can't really go too fast when I do it, is see how far this will go in just EV mode. So I'm doing 40 right now, which 40 feels like nothing, and I'm still in EV mode. And see, I do this often, and I still only get 15 mpg max. On the highway, I've seen 20, 18, but at least on this total average, I've been getting 12.2 right now. Now, the reason why I said that the air suspension in this is more of an unfortunate option than something that I'd want is because of the ride. For 80K, you feel a lot of the road in the back of this. It feels like I'm driving a Tundra. The road I'm on is pretty smooth, but I've been on some pretty choppy roads, and the ride has been, to me, borderline unacceptable. I really have not been that happy with the air suspension on this because it's so stiff. And I drive with this in comfort mode most of the time, which comfort mode makes this so floaty and bouncy. You definitely have to test drive one of these with and without the air suspension because I don't know. There's some roads, again, the roads in my area are a little bit better, well, at least my immediate area, because the roads around here are pretty bad. Overall, I think that the Sequoia is a reasonable buy. I myself, unfortunately, as much as I love Toyota SUVs and trucks, I don't think I'd get one of these because of the rear end. This is a rear end away from success because the third row is a bit of a compromise and the trunk space is a huge compromise that I myself can't get over that block. I think Toyota nailed it on the powertrain. I'm excited to see what other vehicles that this is put into because this thing really has a lot of power. It's super confident when you're on the road. So I would at least test drive one, but definitely look at the back half of this to make sure that it fits for you and your family's needs. But I hope you all enjoyed getting up close and personal with the 2023 Toyota Sequoia. Remember, I have an off-road video that should be up before this video. Well, it is up. By the time you're watching this, it's up, but that will be up here somewhere. But thank you all for watching. Let me know if you have a 23 Sequoia and how it's treated you, because I'm online a lot. I read comments and I see Reddit. I see what people are saying about these, but let's have some discussion in the comments. But anyways, before I start talking too much, thank you for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, peeps.